Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, I'm Dan Marty.
And this is Nasty Sags, and I'm here to get nasty with this guy.
The feedback from you guys has been phenomenal. A brand new Wrestling Insider special edition is next.
This is Mick Foley.
This is Harley Race.
This is Shelton Benjamin.
This is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
This is the Monster Abyss.
And this is Daniel Bryan.
This is JBL, and you're watching the MWF.
Be there live.
Wrestling fans, welcome back to another special Wrestling Insiders. We're here again with Jerry Sags. Again, was almost similar to Marty Jannetty. We try and start on topic to try and go in chronological order, and Jerry takes us on these great adventures throughout the country, throughout the world, in places we don't even expect when the episode begins. Some people say, doesn't that drive you crazy? I think it's great because I think it makes for more original, organic feeling productions.
Well, I can't be compared to the new Johnny Carson of your TV shows, Marty Jannetty, but I'm trying to get close.
Well, I tell you, Marty...
I'm glad to see Marty's doing so good and he's getting over with these things.
Marty, he said he had a lot of fun living with you guys in Memphis.
Oh, my God.
But did you have a lot of fun living with him?
There's that apartment in Memphis was... if you can take Animal House times 3, that's what our apartment in Memphis would be.
He said it was one bedroom. He said half the time you guys would sleep the bedroom, and they'd sleep on the couch and the floor, and then you'd flip-flop every couple weeks.
We had two little beds in one little room, a shower, and then a little thing. It was like a little furnished place. Me and Knobs ran it cheap. But in that development, like I said before, upstairs was Rocky Johnson, his wife, and Dewey, who you know is The Rock now. And across the street was Moondog.
Oh, really?
One of the Moondogs. And down the street was they were called the Kelly Twins. I don't know if you remember those guys. They're old school guys, but they were both bald from Canada. And they went as the Clones in Tennessee. They came in for a run, 7-15 and 7-16. They rode a medallion around them. So they were identical twins. Nevertheless, one of them, they were in that accident with Adrian.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were in that accident with Adrian in
the July 4th
Nova Scotia. Yeah, and one of them died.
Wow.
So I had never seen them since Tennessee in '87.
Wow.
But I heard they were in that accident, and we became pretty good with Adrian. He influenced us a lot. I didn't know until we were brought up by a promoter. God, it has to be, I don't know, 15 years ago or more, to Nova Scotia, Halifax, a tour, a run through there. And he flew in Hulk Hogan for it. And I didn't know how close of friends, so Hulk pulled us aside. We said, where were you at? We got to one of the big shows. He only came in for 2, but we were on a loop. Cactus, Mick Foley was on it. Billy Gunn, X-Pac, a bunch of us guys were all up there, and Hulk came in for 2 of the big shows. He goes, well, he told me in Knobs that he said, I had the guy drive me to the exact spot where the van went off the road.
Wow.
And I go, he goes, and he's upset, clearly upset about it. And I didn't know the influence and friendship they made in the AWA. Him and Adrian Adonis were tight, very close. He helped Hulk in his early days. So he made it a thing while he was in Nova Scotia to go see that.
Wow.
But not to get off your thing about our apartment in Tennessee.
Not at all.
That's how a story, just like when we were talking about Pat Patterson or Percy or anybody, there's so much that is around it and branches off of different things.
Adrian is kind of a forgotten soul in wrestling. And I think that's kind of sad because during that big mid-'80s boom, the first live event I went to as a little 5-year-old kid, it was Hogan and George Steele against Adrian and Macho Man down the street at the Garden. And look at WrestleMania 3, Roddy Piper's retirement match, quote-unquote, for the first time in front of 93,000 people. It was Piper and Adonis, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't know why he left the company in '87 after Beefcake cut his hair, but
well,
it seems like
that's when he came. When I met him,
yeah,
we and Bob Orton at different times, of course. Jimmy Snuka was already there, like I said previously, and we came very tight with Jimmy Snuka. He stayed at our place in Brad's basement. He drove in the ring truck with us as a joke one time.
Really?
Curt left him behind. Purposely, Jimmy had to sit in the middle of me and Nas
Oh,
while
my God.
we're driving the ring truck. Jimmy slept with us, stayed at our place at Brad's. We were sent to pick up Bob Orton at the airport when he came into the territory, leaving WWF at the time. We were sent to pick up Adrian and pick him up. Adrian had an influence on our wrestling style. Roddy Piper told us stuff because those two sort of, I could tell they liked what we were doing, how we acted. It was a little play of each of them was in it. You know what I mean? Adrian, the one that told us, at that first TV when he watched us wrestle, "You're not nasty. What are you doing?" And he told, we never stabbed the people in the eye with a pen. Or we did spit, though. I forgot about that. I started spitting a lot in people's faces. I spit walking in the ring. It drove Gorilla Monsoon nuts. The position there is named after him.
The gorilla position, yeah.
I come back and he goes, "Quit that spitting." You know what I mean? Because back in the day, the early days of the WWF, I mean, you couldn't touch a table, a chair. You weren't even allowed to get out, exit the ring unless you to throw somebody back in. None of this crazy stuff was going on. So me spitting would drive Gorilla nuts, but I kept doing it. It was part of the thing. Somebody would yell at me, go spit right in their face, or I spit right in the camera. You know what I mean? Drive Gorilla crazy. That came from Adrian, as did one of the last things he said after gouged their eyes out, stab them with a pen, spit in their face. It takes their head and ram it into your partner's armpit. That's how we got.
That was a great spot.
Pity City.
Yeah.
Take somebody's face and put it in the opposite slimy armpit or mine. People go, we started doing it. That's how that happened. Same with Roddy. Interviews. How you go to the ring. No middle ground. Love you or hate you. You know what I mean? You get that, you listen, you got to be a sponge early on in the business. But that's a long way, or not too long, to that apartment in Tennessee, which was Animal House 2.
Animal House 2. Like I said, if those walls could talk.
My God, I can't say the stuff that Jimmy Suzuki, Steve, we drove back with Steve Kern. Jimmy Suzuki's a Japanese reporter, was going to do a big story. Me, Sean, Marty, Jimmy Suzuki, Steve Kern were all in a thing.
I think I know this one, but let me hear your version of it.
Steve Kern's father, Steve's one of our closest friends. He brought us to Florida out of Minneapolis. But Steve Kern's father, this is while we were in Tennessee when we first met Steve, but he was coming back to the infamous apartment. We were going to party. We rode together. Jimmy Suzuki, Steve started stirring the shit on the ride back. Goes, today is December 7th. Or that there's something, the start of when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Jimmy Suzuki, the Japanese reporter. And Steve goes on to tell the story. Well, my father, believe it or not, Steve Kern's dad was in the Air Force when he was 19.
Oh, really?
He was shot down over Germany and held at a German prison. As a 19-year-old, he paratrooped out and he was held prisoner. When Vietnam came around, he was a colonel.
Wow.
And he was in a jet bombing Hanoi. And he was shot down. And he had a nice long stay at the Hanoi Hilton, the infamous prison, for 7 years. Wow. He was gone from when Steve Kern was 13 to when Steve was 20. He came home, was released after the war ended.
Oh, my God.
He came home from Vietnam. So Steve started that whole thing up. So by the time Steve had us so riled up, by the time we got back, Jimmy Suzuki was the Japanese reporter, was going to get killed. But anyway, some things were thrown in Jimmy's drink, and he's unconscious in our hallway at the infamous place. Jimmy Suzuki wakes up with a mohawk and no eyebrows, and I think a Hitler mustache painted in Sharpie on his face. And he's screaming. Long story short, me and Knob never got the article written about us.
Was there not a time with Curt,
Marty was there.
with Curt involved where, it might be the same gentleman, he wound up naked in the parking lot, and Curt called the police saying there was a crazy guy out in the parking lot?
Curt, and whoever would come through town, where Scott Hall, Curt, they'd always be with us and end up at our apartment. And then during that time, there was 4 of us in the apartment already, but it didn't matter. The more the merrier.
Right.
And it was there was stuff going through the windows. There was, you know, a lot I can't say. But anyway, Randy Hale was a slow guy. He was a Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler promoted the territory. Mm-hmm. And one of Jerry, he did television that, and he drove home with us. I think it was Curt, Jeff Jarrett, Randy Hale, and me and Knobs. Curt takes this guy, we drink gets them all drunk, we get back, we're pulling up. He takes our car, and he drives our car down an embankment at the hotel and plows into the bushes. The car's upside down. Randy Hale's head smashed off the thing.
Oh,
he
geez.
starts cursing at Curt. Curt takes him and puts the guy in an airplane spin, and he's spinning him so fast, the guy's going around and around and around and around. And he falls, he's so dizzy, he's laying out there, and now he's like hit his head, and he's crawling around and outside the thing. The security Curt called out the complex.
Oh, was that what it was? Okay.
Yeah, something like that. There's some crazy man. Next time we see him, no, I'm with these guys. Are like, we don't know him, you know. You know what I mean? And that weekend, it was the same weekend after Curt left town. Curt was coming as AWA champion and wrestling against Jerry Lawler. Mm-hmm. And we were doing our street fight thing in the Mid-South Coliseum. It sold out down there. Mid-South Coliseum, the old place. That's a place Elvis used to sneak out and go watch wrestling matches down there from the top. Classic old building in Memphis. And we had Memphis TV every Saturday morning while we were in Tennessee. Jeff Jarrett was only 17. Jeff would pick us up and we'd go on the road with him. And his daddy, they took good care of us there. And we got all these antics going on, and whoever was there, and that Randy Hale was one of them, and Curt was in town that time. So Curt leaves, and it's like, Knob's like, you know what? You're a pig. I go, what do you mean? He goes, wash your clothes and stuff. It stinks in here. This has been a while. I go, what do you mean? I have no dirty stuff. He's go, Knob's like, F you. And then Sean and Mario, you guys, what are you doing? Is there somebody playing, you know? And after a week or two, we find freaking Curt took a tissue box and shit in it, a big cow pie, and hid it under the corner under our beds. And after a while, we go, something stinks. This is smelling like hell. You know. And then Curt's back in Minneapolis going, and then we finally find it. We all call him. We find a thing, and it's all, oh my God, it was gross. A big shit pile in there. We find it. We called, and then that was the shit deodorizer joke that Curt played on his way out. So one of the times, Sean's in the shower, and a joke we do on each other, I go and grab, let the water run till it's cold outside, so the water gets, just tap water, but in Tennessee, decently cold, freezing as I could get it. And wait, Sean's all steaming up in there. I sneak in the bathroom and whoosh, I hear screaming like that and run out, and I go, Knobs, you're an asshole. Why would you do that to Sean? And then so I think Sean don't know it's me. It goes back and forth. A couple days go by, I'm in the shower. And all of a sudden, I get something thrown on me. But it ain't ice water. Somebody went and put a cup of water on the stove. And right at the boiling point, when it just was starting to start the bubble, that it got that hot, the big bucket on our stove came in the shower. My whole back was burnt like I had sunburn. I went, I was screaming. That's all. And I go, and they're him and Sean, they go, who's, and they're blaming on each other. You motherfuckers. So I know somebody stooged me off. It was Sean boiled me like a lobster in the shower. That's the shit that went on almost every day in our thing. And the antics with you just can't say it. There's a lot of the stuff that happens. Craziness. crazy, good, but greatest times of our life. We were all single, didn't have a worry in the world. We were wrestling every night, didn't care about anything, and we were surrounded by our good friends.
Life was good.
That was the best times of our life right there, you know. And we were learning or what we wanted to do for our life at that time. You know what I mean? Good times.
And it worked out great for everybody involved, from the names that you mentioned.
I'm sure Marty, you know, with his Johnny Carson shtick here, brings that up every once in a while.
Oh, he does. No, he was, even before you guys flew in this week, he texted me to make sure to mention the times at the nasty apartment in Memphis.
Sean pretty much lived with us a lot when we were all in Minneapolis. Sean had his own apartment. Marty had a place. And we stayed living in Brad's basement. And there was like a little apartment, a bedroom, a bathroom and that down there. And we had two rooms there. And Sean would always be with us. Marty go on his wire thing, but Sean would all be, me, Knobs, and Sean we had one big bed which we had a flip for, and then one of us get the blown out bed. It was an old piece of crap. That was me and Knobs' room. We lived in there in camp. We lived in there in wrestling in AWA, and then Sean was in there with us a lot of the times. Then Jimmy Snuka would be on the couch.
Oh, jeez.
And then Curt would bring us back home and crank the radio up and cause all kind of trouble down there to wake Brad up upstairs, and then Brad would come down mad, and you don't want to piss Brad Reagans off because he'd kill you. He'd rip you apart in 2 seconds, one of the greatest amateur wrestlers ever in the face of the earth. And then Curt would do it on purpose. So the antics that we had in Minneapolis, we'd bring Jimmy home with us. Greg Gagne. Jimmy, you guys are picking Jimmy up, make sure he's at TV at 9 a.m. Okay, you know, we couldn't say no. We were young, just breaking into business. This is before we came back from Tennessee. We just started wrestling on our own and driving the ring truck. We'd all drive Jimmy around. Jimmy'd stay with us. Jimmy, we got to go for breaking Jimmy up. We got to go for television. What, brother? We got to go to TV. Greg's going to be mad. He goes, you don't worry about Greg, brother. Chill out. For now, we're going to have a little breakfast, coffee, and we're going to smoke a little bit of this Pakaloa. He brings up a bag of weed. Pakaloa from Hawaii, because it wasn't like it was now. That was the best good weed. The Hawaiian, I got some. I go, oh no, we can't. We got to go to. Go, brother, sit down. Jimmy started smoking joints with Jimmy. Jimmy's got us so fucked up. Now it's 11:30, and now we knobs are so stoned, and Jimmy's just in his normal element. He flicks his hair back.
Jimmy's just Jimmy.
He thinks his thing, splashes water. He smacks his chest like the Sheik, and now we go to TV. Jimmy walks in, goes by Greg Gagne. Lovely brother. Greg's steaming. He can't say a word to Jimmy, or Jimmy will choke him. Who does Greg Gagne come after? Me and Knobs. You too. I told you to have him here on time. We're like, oh, we're like two scorned puppy dogs. You know what I mean? Greg's yelling at us. But what can we do? We're just young in the business. So now we sit down. We take the hell off because Jimmy's got us so fucking stoned. I don't know if I'm coming or going. Now Jimmy comes up for his interview. We were there just to watch interviews to learn. Curt, Sergeant Slaughter, Buddy Rose, Rob, everybody. Sherry Martel, Ray Stevens, everybody. And everybody's going in and out, taking their turn. We're in the studio. Me and Knobs hide under a curtain. And we're fucked up as can be from Jimmy. And he knew it. So, and we never really understood what Jimmy was talking about a lot of times. He'd corner us and tell us these crazy stuff until he had us stoned out of our mind. And now Jimmy comes up, Larry Nelson's, well, Mr. Snuka, who we'd like to bring out right now, and he goes, let me tell you something, brother. When the moon is, and Jimmy goes on with this crazy stuff, and somehow now, me and Knobs understand what the fuck he's saying. He's got us stoned out of our minds. We're in the back of the thing going, you tell him, Jimmy, tell him, Jimmy. We're all into it. He's got us intrigued, you know, because before we're like, what the fuck's Jimmy talking about? It's crazy stuff. Now we're in a different state of mind. We understood Jimmy. That was the same thing. So everywhere we lived, wherever it was, in Minneapolis, in Brad's basement, in our apartment in Tennessee, in our places in Florida, we're even crazier sometimes. Then we moved from place to place till we settled down. It was like that. That was our lifestyle, pretty much.
Unbelievable. Let me ask you this. A couple of previous interviews, you mentioned that you came into WWF around the same time as The Undertaker did. Undertaker went on for a little bit lengthier of a run than you guys had in WWF. What was your initial impression of the actual Undertaker character, this dead man come to life? You'd think under most circumstances, with maybe other people portraying the gimmick, you might get a couple of years out of it. Was it the character that made the man or the man that made the character?
I think it was both. Sid and Mark were tagged up. I think it was Mean Mark and Sid Vicious.
There's the
and
skyscrapers.
they're both huge dudes. You know, Sid was the more of the physique. Sid was massive. Mark was just a big dude. And they were good. Mark could always work. You know what I mean? And we briefly only just passed because it was like months of a passing there where he was on his way up and we were coming in for the Steiner thing and then we were right behind him. You know what I mean? It was only months in a time there that we almost came in the same time. But when I first saw the Undertaker gimmick, I mean, I could tell, just like, you know, the gimmicks were changing a little bit. We were, you had the LOD, of course, where then they stepped up their deal, Joe and Mike, with the shoulder pads for that WWF, WWE mainstream television with the big pads and all that kind of thing, and for more marketability and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't realize. They said, well, it's just another gimmick, but Taker was doing it to the T, with the whole hand thing, and he had the gloves on, he'd wear the thing, and he could just walk real slow and methodically, which was his style. You know what I mean? But here's a guy that's, you know, I don't know, 6'7" or something like that, and he's walking the top rope to do that move. I'm like, he was he was a natural athlete. What I told you before is I didn't realize it until how we were getting over and he was. So I go, oh my God, we were pulling into Wembley on one of our first tours when like Sky TV took off. The first time Undertaker was in England and us as Nasty Boys under WWF, and that's our first time we went to Europe as in wrestling, because a lot of guys went for Auto Wants or did the England territories. Like Vader was a big Germany guy. With Auto Wants, met him at Ranganya, took him over a bunch of times. We never did that. We did a lot of Japan in tag team tournaments in the 80s and then back all through the 90s. But I realized it when how over Taker was going to get over and how it was going to just take off was, I said, well, you know, look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 people. There's thousands of people out there. We're noticing some people dressed, some kids like Nasty Boys with a shirt or something on, and I looked and go, holy shit! I mean, they had the hats, the gloves, the capes, all different kind of things. But I'm talking hundreds of. There's thousands of people around. We're pulling in. They're dressed the Undertaker or us or something like that. I knew. I said, it's blowing up. You know what I mean? And the gimmick just kept escalating, you know what I mean, as it went, grew. And then, like you said, you asked about Jimmy Hart with us, the heat that he provided, and now you take, you know, Paul Bearer and put the white ghostly thing, almost like the Addams Family type deal on him, you know, and he's his type with the urn. It was like it's like a match made in heaven there. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you this one, personal opinion. When Undertaker first debuted at SummerSlam 1990. He was actually managed by a good friend of the show, Bruce Pritchard, Brother Love. Do you think Undertaker would have had the longevity or have been as over if he remained with Brother Love and they never brought Percy in as Paul Bearer?
Well, you can never tell. I know Brother Love with that gimmick, the Reverend thing could have, now that you think about it, the Reverend thing could have tied in, you know, the heat with the red face and being the evangelistic preacher, the heat he was getting with that, you know, because of Undertaker being a dead guy, supposedly.
Right.
But I don't know. You never know. But I think things happen for a reason. My honest opinion was it could have been close, but I think that the real deal was to have a real Undertaker, which is Paul Bearer's job, which we did on the part-time, wherever in Alabama, wherever we lived or whatever, and, you know, get out of that Percy Pringle, but he was a skilled manager. But to make him a pallbearer, I mean, you know, I think it was the way to go.
How odd do you think it was for people down in Alabama at different times when he had to leave WWF at different points in his career to have him show up at the home to collect the body? I mean, you must do a double take. Wait a minute. That's Paul Bearer from WWE coming to collect Aunt Amy's body. I mean, that's...
I'd want him to carry my urn around a little bit. I don't, fuck it. Well, you know, who gives a shit? You know what I mean?
He kept up that degree in mortuary science until the day he passed, so it meant a lot to him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he did the gimmick so well. Yeah. And like I said, you can't say how it would have went because it didn't go. And you look at a lot of stuff like Hollywood, when you see these shows, like some of the greatest movies, you go, well, that part was supposed to be given to so-and-so. Like, you know, say Marlon Brando in The Godfather, or so-and-so, but then you think about it again, go, it was meant to be that guy got that part. Because that movie would have not been the same if that other guy would have acted as that guy.
I don't think I don't think Undertaker would have had the longevity.
You know,
with Bruce as his manager. I don't think he would have had a 30-year run. Maybe is the way to put it.
Well, Taker was. He's a quiet dude, a good dude, a
good human being.
Party his ass off, a straight-up guy, and a good businessman because he was low keel. He did good business. He was smart, and got that. And probably when it goes down in the record books, probably one of the end up one of the wealthiest, longest running stars in wrestling history. Yeah. You know, financially and run wise, and as over gimmicks for the longest time.
And he just signed a nice 15-year extension with WWE, so I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon.
I hope it's not getting just thrown out like because that thing you were talking about. You know, I don't like to see him be portrayed as that. To me, it's cheap in a little ways. When he is used, he should be respected and used correctly.
The icon that he is.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
What about one of the great legends, man, I think you were around maybe a little bit in AWA, that was back in WWF at that point as kind of another fresh face to try and sprucing things up. Sergeant Slaughter was back as a heel, and a lot of people feel that crossed the line a little bit with the real-world tension going on in 1990 into 1991. Slaughter was given the championship belt at Royal Rumble 91 as the United States was preparing to go to war. There was some heat.
Well, it worked before, and that was with the Iranian crisis. That which gave the Sheik his heat. You know what I mean? Because he was the real deal.
Right.
He was from Iran, and they're holding the hostages. He's one of the most hated guys. Sheik didn't have to do too much but show up. You know what I mean? And that goes back to the wrestling at its best. That you take a real situation. I mean, there are lines like with race and with situations where you have to be careful. But that old school thinking back in the day, I was there for it all. That war broke out where the WrestleMania 7 was supposed to be held at the Coliseum.
Right.
And at the same time, those riots right after that went down, the Rodney King thing, the racial tension was there then. It'd be almost like if you would take Slick today, the heat they got with him, and have a black guy like that, with everything, the racial tension that's being spurred out there and all the stuff going on, and to get heat, he's eating chicken and
fried chicken,
shit talking and everything. That would be really cross. You wouldn't fly today, this day and time. But back in the day, a war, here's an opportunity. Sarge did multiple things, and he's made a lot of money through his career. And I've seen him from the camouflage limo when I was a kid, pulling up at the George Washington Motor Lodge, where I told you we used to chase George Steele at, to, he was with G.I. Joe, had to deal with them and all that, to turn on his country. And then they brought in Sheik Adnan Al-Casey, which was the Sheik in AWA, to go with them as villains. They went with it and got away with it. You know, like I'm saying, that kind of stuff today, like with the Gulf War, if you made took a guy that's from, I know they had some kid that was like Islamic or something like that, but if you push the religion stuff or the racial stuff too far with the PG and stuff ratings that they can't do so much on because of the wide casting of the television now, you're restricted. And I don't think you'd be able to do it. Just like when you can't be bludgeoning guys' heads in anymore with chairs and and bleeding all over the place, and that's all gone now. So you got to watch your step with all that kind of stuff because it's fragile out there.
I remember.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm done.
One of I can't remember quite who, but someone here in the studio said WWF had to provide around-the-clock security to his home when Slaughter was on the road just to protect his wife and kids because there was that much heat on them.
There was serious, yeah, and that's before they went to the entertainment,
right?
Where we said we're just entertainment, and then people, they knew it was professional wrestling, but they still the real fans took it to heart and soul. It pissed them off because Sarge was representing being a U.S. Marine and all that kind of stuff, and I know it got heat. That's what it was objected to do, was get that kind of heat to make money.
To be the Iraqi sympathizers, saying that he was going to bring the WWF Championship belt to Saddam Hussein, and that was kind of, you were really bringing some realism into what he was doing. Great heat, but.
Now they're doing the shows for the troops and that type of thing. If you think you do something like that over there, or then you go over to those countries, you can start a war. Before the entertainment thing came into it. You know what I mean?
Leading into WrestleMania 7, you guys won something I don't think they've done since. You won a big 7-tag team battle royal on Superstars of Wrestling to earn that championship opportunity. I think it made the match feel that much more important once you finally got to Los Angeles. You went over there really were, other than the champions, 7 really top name teams at that point. When did you realize that you guys were headed into Mania for one of the top matches?
We didn't know it until that time.
At that TV taping?
We were hoping, but like you said, the new blood, new thing, and who would be the best for that job at that time? I mean, I know we got some slack. That other guys thought they were more deserving, and they were there a little longer, but we had to put up with some stuff, on that end. And
resentment?
Yeah, there was some, here we are, 2 young, cocky guys coming from WCW and going into that thing. But it was, like you said, it was a time of rebuilding, and they needed change because it was getting stale.
They needed fresh faces in a hurry because business tanked in '90 for that company.
And I like Undertaker and that type of gimmick, and later on, Sid would come in, and Rick came up and popped in there for a while, like with us, and not saying anything about the other tag teams that were there at the time, but to do what we did with Jim and Brett, and then get as much heat that could be put on those belts, and then draw that money and that chase with the LOD with Joe and Mike. I'm not saying like toot my horn or nothing, but at that time, I don't see of anybody else being, even look at Sean and Marty were there. I mean, but would that have made sense for them to go and then wrestle the yellow? You know what I mean? Would have been. There's no way in hell. You know what I mean? Well, but when we were really planning on hoping a good run with Sean and Marty too. After the LOD thing was over, that's when Sean split
up off of each other.
You had heels. The Rougeaus had already split up.
They were gone at that point. Yep.
You had Pat and Paul. They came in. They were
Orient Express.
Yeah, Orient Express there, but they were bad company in Tennessee and AWA. That's where I said Diamond Dallas Page managed them there a little bit in the AWA after we left to go to Florida. At the time, and then later, when the tugboat thing was done, Quake's top run was sort of coming
to an end.
And they put, which was a good idea, two huge son of a bitches, and they put them together. But as Quake could work as a singles guy and all that, but a tag team, a big team against a big team, you got to have somebody flying around, and you got to have that heat. I thought that, like I said, everything happens for a reason, and at that point in time, we were the guys for the job. You know what I mean? And we did it to our best of our ability.
Well, even if you just look at the teams in that Battle Royal, I mean, Hot Foundation, they just got done with Power and Glory.
Yeah.
Demolition was being pretty much, Axe was already gone, and they were pretty much jobbing out Billy and Barry. Barry and Brian Crush.
Well, Barry and Bill had a very long run. As tag champions.
One of the great tag teams in company history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And good for them, and it's well deserved. Bill was in the business a long time. Barry was with what's the old Russian?
Ivan Koloff.
Ivan and that whole gang down. He was in there a long time. Minnesota guy. Barry's great. Just two great guys. Good hearts, the whole 9 yards. But it would have been like clashing gimmicks, sort of.
Yeah.
I don't know if the people, and Bill and Barry had a more old school work style than if you really look at their work style, that old school. Them and the LOD, I don't know. I don't know. What's your thinking about that?
I would have liked to have seen it with just Axe and Smash against Hawk and Animal, but by the time the LOD made it to WWF, Crush was already involved because Bill had the shellfish or something like that.
Well, by the time we got there, Crush, who was a good friend of ours too, God bless him, he was on his own when the Orange, which is Crush. He wasn't in.
Well, no, they were still Demolition, just as
when we were there?
Yeah, because they wrestled, one of their last matches was WrestleMania 7 when they worked two guys from Japan. I can't think of it.
I didn't even realize that.
But that was about it. But at Survivor Series 90, about a month before you came in, Bill saw the writing on the wall, and it was bye-bye Demolition Axe, and that was for the best because, within 6 months, that team was just jobbed out, and Barry became Repo Man about a year later, and then, like you said, Crush came back in the Orange and developed a Hawaiian accent that he didn't have.
Jesus.
But I think as far as the teams available for WrestleMania 7, unless you wanted to go the quote-unquote dream match route and do LOD against Hot Foundation or Rockers against Hot Foundation, you were the team.
But that gives, if you go right with LOD and the Hart Foundation, with Jim and Brett were baby faces at the time.
Right.
They were loved. And the LOD would, no matter what they did, the people weren't going to hate them.
Right.
The more they beat people up, the more they loved them.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it would have been
awkward.
It would have been very awkward. I think that, for the time we were there, we filled that void
very well.
And we did the best that me and Knobs could do to our ability to get as much heat as we could, to take those from one and get them to the other, to give them the most overness as they had. You know what I mean? Did we take that gimmick a little too far? Well, maybe. I mean, who gives a shit about that now?
Right.
We're the Nasty Boys. Fuck it. What are you going to do? Life is life.
Now, with WrestleMania 7, you mentioned a little while ago, originally it was booked to surpass WrestleMania 3 as the biggest of all time. They booked a 100,000-seat Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. There's been people that have said they changed it to the sports arena because ticket sales weren't even enough to fill the sports arena. There's people that have said there was security concern. There are people that have said it's been both. What do you remember as the reason for the move?
I remember it being the whole, they wanted it to go in they wanted to go in the Coliseum. You know what I mean? And it would have flown, but the war broke out. Not only security, there was threats in the United States and all that kind of stuff. And they just said, you know, and then with the war going on, that you know, they're coming off of that, you know, end of 80s, 90s transition.
Yeah.
And the ball getting handed to the Warrior, it was sticky there. You know what I mean? Really, we were as integral, us, Taker, and anybody else that came in at that time was into trying to revive the company at that time than anybody.
91
You know what I mean?
really did develop into a good year, but it just as you weren't there for the majority of it. But 1990, just as someone that watched it as a kid to enjoy it,
Yeah.
it was a piss poor year for a
Yeah.
lot of it.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if they would have been able to sell 100,000 tickets. It's not the phenomenon that it is now. When you look at it, you go to these WrestleMania week festivities that go on, a quarter, a third of the crowd comes from out of the country.
Yeah.
You know, it's a global phenomenon as opposed to just, you know, a big event that came to a city. WrestleMania 3 was such a great success because Detroit was such a drivable city from so many big areas like Toronto and Cleveland and those
Yeah.
places. Fans from everywhere could come in, and you
Well,
had the draw of Hogan and Andre.
To me, the Andre and Hulk stuff and that early 80s, the guys that were participating in that are the guys that'll be looked at in rock and roll, like Elvis and Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson and all the early guys that started all that stuff at that point in time were the first guys to do it. And that realm of those guys, Hulk and Macho and Jake and Greg and Morocco and all, I'm not even mentioning some, but then, you know, the manager, everybody involved.
They'll be icons forever.
They'll be icons because they made it what it is now and what it will be. And I knew there's no way. It's hard to follow up and make a WrestleMania better. Was there great matches though?
Sure.
And after that, my friends that followed. Now I didn't know John Cena. He came up through the one of the developmental territories and one of, I don't know, I think
OVW.
Oh, in Louisville.
Yep.
I didn't know him, but he filled the shoes. He did a really good job, which ain't as easy to do. But I knew Dewey since he was 13, and we're good best friends with his dad. I knew Stone Cold. We were good friends with him and Brian Pillman. We worked with them, and they were the Hollywood Blondes in WCW with us. I never expected the shape. That's genius to me, because Vince was smart enough to know that was inside him, that bald redneck guy. You know what I mean? And he was huge draw. And then coming off our deal, which we did to mainstream TV at that time. Greg Gagne was there, Bill Dundee was there from Tennessee, and Mike Graham were all agents at the time. We've all worked for their own companies. They saw what we did and the money we drew in Memphis and with this fighting type scenario we did. Because we did with Bad Company, Pat Tanaka and Paul Diamond, we developed into these street fights in Mid-South Coliseum that went crazy, you know, that they'd never seen before. And it really did really good business. I was amazed with it. They introduced that at the same time for WCW when we came back, and we were set to go back in to WWE with Cactus and Stone Cold,
really,
and John B. Bad at the time.
Oh wow!
That me and Knobs took the money instead and stayed. We were getting spoiled at that time, and really. I wish, looking back, that we would have went back with them at that, because we were ready to go again. We had our time there, and we should have went, but we were getting... And that tag team division in WWF was dead at the time. They really could have used it. We should have went and made that move, and that's one of the things we talk about a lot. But we did those first ever seen on TV, but there was no hardcore division, nothing like that. But we built it up into a thing where... we started up with Max Payne and Cactus
and Max Payne,
but
and then Cactus
we
and
built
Kevin.
it up to a head, which was a Chicago street fight.
Those were great.
A story about that. Knobs will probably tell you about it too, but you don't know the trouble we got in for that.
No, why?
They booked it as a Chicago street fight. So we bought new different boots and we taped up. We wore different pants like a street. And so we went to ring with pool cues and pipes. You know, we were going to make this a street fight. And Cactus was in, and that was his gimmick. Sort of, he was building into that style gimmick anyway. Mick Foley, Cactus.
Yeah.
We call him Cactus because he was Cactus Jack when he was with us. We still call him Cactus. Not Dude Love or Mick Foley. Cactus when he's with Nasty Boy. But anyway, after that match, I mean, we tore the house down, and it was shit to people. Great, but after that match, we got in the locker room, and we did everything. I mean, it was crazy. And then I was actually, and he told me I was laying those pool cues in on Cactus. I hit him with a shovel so hard, I think I knocked his teeth. I don't know. We did that to each other. We said, we're going to do this. We're going to street fight. We got back to the locker room at the Rosemont. I think, it was a Rosemont. Yeah. I think it was the Rosemont, Chicago. I'm almost certain it was, because by then WWE had gone to the United Center. We took over the Rosemont with WCW. Remember that ramp going down? I know it was Chicago. And, man, Ric Flair gave us a chewing out. What the fuck was that shit? What do you really didn't know what we were going to do. He really, is that back in, like I'm saying, in the early days of Gorilla, whoever, spitting, didn't even want, you couldn't touch a chair, a table. Here we are throwing people off a 5-foot ramp and tables, chairs, crazy pipe. But I said it was a street fight. We just sat there, me and Knobs, didn't know what to say. And I thought we were in trouble with the company. That was what it was booked as. We go back home, and I'm upset about it, thinking we're in trouble or whatever. We go back up to fly back up for center stage into Atlanta, and this is a thing we talk about with Rick a lot today. Yet this is class on his class act on Rick's part. He called a meeting at center stage. And I'm talking all the heavy hitters were there at this time. Everybody's sitting there. Lex, Sting, Macho, Hall, everybody's there. And he goes, I want to apologize in front of everybody to the Nasty Boys and to Cactus and Max Payne. And I just want to tell you why, because Rick took a Learjet home. God bless him. We had his first match, Reed, Rick's son, when he was little. He ran up to him and goes screaming, Dad, that was the greatest match I've ever seen. And then he goes, thank you, buddy. And he picked up, hugging. Goes, Reed goes, no, not your match. That street fight with the Nasty Boy. So Rick told that story, and then once the things came into the pay-per-view stuff, and they realized how this shit got over, it was like he apologized, and because it was like everybody at Turner's like that was the greatest thing, and so that took balls to do that, But he was thinking the old school way, where the old timers, that would have been not right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then we went on with Kevin Sullivan took the book after Rick, and then Sullivan, we went into a deal with Sully and Cactus. Yeah. And we went into the Broad Street Bully match, which we did, and we shot an angle. That was the end of our thing, and we dropped the belts to Cactus, and that was one of the best matches we ever had.
I really enjoyed those two series of matches.
That was.
I think it was Spring Stampede and Slamboree '94, if I remember right.
We brought David Schultz in of the real Broad Street Bullies to ref it.
Yeah.
And I said backstage, I go, listen, if I just listen to one thing, you're going to take your hockey stick to the ring, leave it on the outside, because in my head I'm going to use that. And I had thought up with that finish. It took me a week in my mind how to do this right and put everything together. Old school teaching from Mike Graham, Eddie Graham type, Kevin Sullivan, Dusty Rhodes finish. The finish starts in the first 2 minutes of the match, goes 15 minutes. Psychologically, we were taught that back then. And I said, if I spit in your face or go to you, remember what you used to do in the hockey rink? He goes, I said, yeah, you pull my shirt over my head and lay it in. He goes, are you serious? I go, you fucking lay it in. Like you were beating the shit out of one of the Penguins back in the day. Goes, well, if you do that, I'm going to do that. I said, all right. And I did it because I went after he did the thing and I shoved him. I'm ready to spit. And then before he got the spit out, the spit in Schultz's face. And you talk about in Philly at the old downtown Civic Center.
Civic Center, yeah.
Packed to the hilt, no room, sold out. When I did that, he punched me in the face and pulled my shirt over. I was like this, my shirt, and he was, and the place came unglued. The rafters were shaking. That was one of the Broad Street Bullies beating me up. Then I stagger after that in the Cactus, who's got the hockey stick, and boom, over it, and I'm out on the head. You know what I mean? That was classic. We were up for match of the year, and I think
that was great stuff.
And know who beat us out for match of the year? Our two friends, best friends at the time, Scott Hall and Shawn Michaels.
The
that
ladder match.
Yeah, we came in second. They were first. I think we were first.
I like them both. I know that. I really enjoyed both of them.
That's just me saying. I can't say they were, because they did their own thing, and that was an old school deal, that ladder match. And two guys who knew each other so well, we broke all in together.
Yeah.
Scott and Shawn. Mm-hmm. That was when Scott was Razor and Shawn came in, broke from Marty and went on his own. That match was match of the year, and we were right second in that.
Unbelievable. Wrestling fans, again, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No.
The story...
If you cut me off, I'll let you know. I'll stab you.
You're going to pull my thing over my head.
No, Adrian said to stab you our eyeball out with the pen.
Wrestling fans, the memories, the legends, the stories and experiences, they continue. That's what our Wrestling Insider series is all about. We'd love to hear your feedback on this and all the great episodes and all the great guests. We'd love to have more of Jerry. We'd love to have more of Brian in studio. Again, the Super Chat is open if you're with us during the live premiere. Comment away. If you're not watching the episode during its live premiere, please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. The Patreon is always open. It helps keep the Wrestling Legends working, and you get early ad-free access to all of our shows at patreon.com/Boston Wrestling. For our new friend, Mr. Jerry Saggs, I'm Dan Marati. Until we speak again, folks, you and yours be well and stay healthy. Good night.
And nasty.
World Wrestling Federation was live at the Wikomico Youth and Civic Center in Salisbury, Maryland, Monday, March the 10th, 1986. In the opening contest, CV Afi beat Rene Goulet. Pedro Morales with the win over Barry O. Adrian Adonis defeated George the Animal Steele. The Killer Bees victorious over the Hart Foundation. King Kong Bundy beat Hillbilly Jim. And in the main event, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff and Tito Santana with the win over Rowdy Roddy Piper and Cowboy Bob Orton. If you were in Salisbury Live, share your memories in the comment section below. Use the links in the description box to keep Wrestling Legends working in our eBay store and on our acclaimed Patreon streaming service so we can bring you more interactive superstar shoot interviews to relive the good old days of professional wrestling. Check it out. Boston Wrestling Sports in the MWF explodes into a new year with professional wrestling content galore and need you to join our family. Every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. after our Monday Night Raw review, it's Wrestling Insiders at your house with WWE Hall of Famer Mr. USA Tony Atlas. Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. after NXT and AEW, join rotating legends on Wrestling Insiders Special Edition. Every Thursday night at 10 p.m. after our NXT and Dynamite review, it's Marty Jannetty's No Holds Barred Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll journey on Wrestling Insiders Party with Marty. Friday night after SmackDown, don't miss John Cena Sr.'s Wrestling Insiders Fabulous Fridays. Plus, look for classic clips, history videos, bonus live episodes, pay-per-view watch-alongs, and more. For less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks, get early ad-free access to our Wrestling Insider talk shows, our acclaimed studio shoot interview DVD library, and help keep Wrestling Legends working during the worst of times. Join our growing family at patreon.com/Boston Wrestling. Expect the unexpected in 2021.